Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode number 119 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is Monday, October 26th, 2020. Coming up on tonight's episode, two great friends of the show, Mela, Blust and Kashiana, Singh, both wonderful poets, will be returning to the program to discuss their new books and read selections from their own and each other's work. Mela's book, They Found a Woman's Body, was just released this month through Vegetarian Alcoholic Press, and in fact I was stoked to receive my copy in the mail today just in time for tonight's episode. And Kashiana's latest book, Crushed Anthills, was released earlier this year through Yavanika Press. Anyone interested in ordering copies can find links to both collections in the show description. Also, phone lines will be open tonight if anyone would like to call in with questions for the guests. The number here is 646-668-8757. And in the second hour, we'll be having an open mic segment. So feel free to call in and read a few poems of your own if you'd like. The more, the merrier. Stay tuned for all that coming up in just a bit. And please be sure to hit the follow button here on 17 Numa Radio to subscribe to the channel and receive information about upcoming shows. Thank you to everyone who supports the program by spreading the word and sharing links. So it's been a while, my friends. Over a month since the last episode aired, and that's the longest dry spell since this show launched back in the summer of 2018. I've been sucked down the rabbit hole and wrapped up tight in the news of the world of late, neglecting to some degree my own work while focusing on the madness surrounding the upcoming election and other various issues that are entirely beyond my control. Now ain't that just the silliest damn thing a person could do? Well, whatever. I have to admit I sort of enjoy the wild nature of it all. And anyway, that stage of the game is nearly complete, and we are officially back in business and set to have an awesome evening ahead. But first, just for fun, one more dive into the infinite abyss. Objective news is a concept no longer applicable in the modern era. Only propaganda and echo chamber narratives remain in the Wuhan age, along with all the twisted ways in which they're strung out and woven together. But facts are still eternal, despite periods in which they seem out of fashion. History is pretty much a lie as well while we're at it, across the board, in every culture, half-truths and hero worship, which honestly isn't always the worst thing. Some cool people have done some awesome deeds and pulled off some daring feats since the story of civilization first started, though it usually winds up being some other person with their own set of prejudices that serves as scribe after the fact. So the whole script is suspect. Questionable agendas abound. Loosen the foundation, but only if you have quick feet and know how to stick the landing. The medical industrial death machine is a racket. The American press is straight corrupt. Hollywood culture is a vacuous suck. Big tech priests are too high on hubris, micro-dosed in Silicon Valley towers. Fascist and communist are as one in this age, cursed the same by their blind lust for power. Yeah, I've seen enough to get the gist of the story. Lord, grant me courage, peace, serenity, discernment, wisdom, and a steadfast resolve during this incredibly bizarre year through which we spin. The Roaring Twenties, the Wuhan Age, and Atlantis Rising all at the same time. Parallel realities entwined and overlapping. Connect the dots, choose your own adventure and color beyond the lines. Pick a frequency that best suits your persuasion and tap into the vibration that assures eventual ascension. Apocalypse and revelations, prophecies of new heights or annihilation. We have it all to contend with at this precise moment of quickening. A crisis, a cancer, a crescendo comes calling. I've been holding it all in when what I want most is to rant. And that's a surefire recipe for twisting the guts and choking on a blood-stained tongue. So I'd rather cough up the poison, lick the space behind a glowing forehead, and spit shine twice despite the plague. I've been obsessed with a great many beliefs, perceptions, substances, and other miscellaneous activities during this life. Consciousness, candy, chemicals, and creative urges. But all of these arrive as morning dew, eagerly consumed or just as quickly evaporating from the blades, flushed out the venom and clung to forward motion, shut my mouth and learned how to listen. The only addiction never lacking true depth is love, filtered through any language, burning holes in well-aged suns. And that'll just about wrap things up here at the top of the show. Let's go to a music break now and then return on the other side with tonight's guests, Mela Blust and Kashiana Singh. Stay tuned.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste, could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too loved to let it go, but if you never try, you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
When the wind picked up, the fire spread, and the grapevine seemed left for dead. And the northern sky looked like the end of days, the end of days. The wake-up call to a rented room sounded like an alarm of impending doom, to warn us it's only a matter of time before we all burn. Before we all burn. Before we all burn. Before we all burn. We bought some wine and some paper cups near your daughter's school, and we picked her up and drove to a cemetery on a hill, on a hill. We watched the plumes paint the sky gray as she laughed and danced through the field of graves, and there I knew it would be alright, that everything would be alright. Would be alright. Would be alright. Would be alright. And the news reports on the radio said it was getting worse. The ocean air fanned the flames, but I couldn't think of anywhere I would have rather been to watch it all burn away. Burn away. The firemen worked in double shifts with prayers for rain on their lips, and they knew it was only a matter of time.
Welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. If there's anyone interested in appearing as a guest on a future episode of the program, please feel free to get in touch with me via email at 17numa@gmail.com or reach out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and I'd be more than happy to get you set up for an interview later in the year. Also wanted to remind everyone that there'll be an open mic segment coming up in the second hour of the show tonight, so please do call in and read a few of your poems. But before then, in the first hour, we've got a couple of great guests. Mela Blust is a Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominated poet and has appeared in the Bitter Oleander, Rust and Moth, the Nassau Review, the Sierra Nevada Review, Collective Unrest, and many others. She is the author of Skeleton Parade and her new collection, They Found a Woman's Body, and is a contributing editor for Barron Magazine. And Kashiana Singh lives in Chicago and embodies her TEDx talk theme of work as worship into her everyday life. Her first collection was Shelling Peanuts and Stringing Words, and her most recent chapbook, Crushed Anthills, is a journey through 10 cities. Her poems have been published on various platforms, including Poets Reading the News, Visual Verse, Oddball Magazine, Café de Census, Turnpike Magazine, Inverse Journal, and others. Kashiana proudly serves as an associate poetry editor for Poets Reading the News. Mela and Kashiana, how are y'all doing tonight?
Doing really well, Scott.
Glad to hear it. Great to have y'all both on the show again. Always a great time when talking with you, and excited for both of your collections that are out, so looking forward to getting into that tonight, and as always, hearing some of your wonderful work.
Definitely. It's great to be back on.
Cool.
Lovely to hear your voice again, both of you.
You as well, Kashiana.
You as well, Kashiana.
Yeah, definitely excited to receive a copy of your book in the mail today, Mela. I've been reading through that.
That was very serendipitous. Just in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Always dig the synchronicity. Good sign for the show. So, what have you been up to
lately?
What have you been up to recently in these crazy times?
Oh, I myself have been basically hiding in the forest a lot, but I always did that anyway, so.
Yeah, it's been great watching some of your forest pictures, Mela. I look forward to seeing them when you post them once in a while. I've been walking a lot, Scott.
Yeah, being outdoors, that's where it's at.
Absolutely, can never
that's what we have left.
tune in to nature more. Yeah. How are things there in Chicago, Kashiana?
Today, we had our first snowfall today. Can you believe it?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
We did. Thankfully, not a lot, but we did. So we're officially welcoming winter.
Yeah.
And the last few months have been interesting. And Scott, I'm aware we've been interacting a little. All of us have found it. Either we've gone too far and written a lot, or gone completely the other side and not written at all. And I've had both those experiences as well.
I have as well.
Yeah,
the muse is a funny creature.
Going through both sides of the spectrum. It's unprecedented times for everyone, artists and writers included. So I guess we just deal with it as best we can and stay in the flow as much as possible, see what comes out of it. But what phase are you in right now, Kashiana?
When you find a place where you can't write, what do you kind of focus on and hone in on?
Well, for me, I would say it's what you just mentioned, getting back to nature, going for walks, sitting on a park bench somewhere, taking in the calm energy of the atmosphere and just trusting in the process, the Tao process, as I refer to it myself. And just knowing that if the words aren't flowing at a certain time, you can still rely on the fact that they've always come back in the past, and so just stay centered within yourself. They'll eventually come back again, and so the main thing is just not allowing any sort of frustration or mental fatigue to set in wanting to get something out that's not there, just allowing it to come when it will, and as it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't find that I get frustrated. I just kind of, I'm like, oh, is it ever going to come back?
I can see that happening. For me, I think what's happened is my routine daily work is so engrossed in what the pandemic has brought to people's lives, and I won't go into the details of that, Scott and Mela, that I actually have written a lot, and it's actually been like a relief and a respite for me to write, because it's taken me away from what I'm doing every day during the rest of my time.
Yeah,
it's actually
great.
like meditation for me to be able to write through this time.
It's wonderful to have that balance, that therapeutic aspect of it.
Yes.
What sort of themes have you been churning out lately, Kashiana?
Initially, I think a lot like everybody else. Initially, it was a lot about what the lockdown, or the quarantine, or the isolation did to you, yourself, or what it did to others as you observed. But then it shifted away from that to like you said, observation of nature, going out on my walks, and what I saw outside there, as well as just, of course, it's not just a pandemic, right? We've lived through the last few months, have also seen a lot of other things around. You spoke a little about it at the beginning. So yes, we are focused on the pandemic, but the pandemic has been of so many different kinds as well. So yes, that too.
There's so much more, than the pandemic. Yeah. There's a lot.
Yes.
There's certainly been no lack of novel circumstances that we've had to deal with.
That's a good word.
Racial relations, civil unrest, a maddening political divide, people at each other's throats. So no lack of content for writers to delve into.
Yep. And I always, and this kind of connects to my coming back to the book Crushed Antilles is about places, and the two places that I consider my North Pole and South Pole, or to my anchoring, are the country I live in, my current home, which is the United States, and then the home that I came from, which is India, and both countries have had similar circumstances and upheavals, so there's been no dearth, to your point, Scott, of things that have come together, very different yet very similar, right, in things that are going on across the world.
Absolutely. Do you still have family in India right now?
Yes, a lot of it. Yep.
How are they doing over there with the situation?
Similar. My parents are elder, so they've had to deal with it in their own way. And then other parts of the family, of course, similar circumstances in terms of whether it's work circumstances or jobs or education, going through a different social and other circumstances, right? Just like we are here. Yeah. And being away and not being there in person and present makes it harder to deal with, because you're not there watching things side by side with them.
Yeah, that's difficult.
With the pandemic that's been going on, obviously the lockdowns and certain areas are more severe than others, but across the board, events of the literary nature have basically been shut down. Have either of y'all been doing any of the Zoom-type readings or other online connections with journals?
Actually, that's been a very positive. I have actually been, that to me has been a positive, things that I may not have been able to participate in, either because of just the inability to travel, because of commitments, either professional or personal, or just time, being able to do that. One particular is Mela, like Kai Coggin's Wednesday night poetry is something that I've become a complete regular part of the chorus.
Oh, such a great program.
Right. And then the other thing, a lot of overall, like even just international small workshops that I've been able to go in and sign up for that I may not have otherwise been able to do. Scott, to your point, because just like you can do it at any time of the hour or the weekends, which wouldn't have been available otherwise in normal times.
Yeah. I think in the beginning of everything, I kind of got burned out with that because, my daughter and I already were homeschooling, and so she had a few of those like online functions a week, and then I had a meeting with some friends, and we were just kind of keeping connected and keeping abreast of like what was going on with everyone and if they needed anything. And I think with all of a sudden having 3, 4, or 5 online commitments, everybody just got really burned out. My daughter was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I think we just kind of all collectively logged off and went outside and just stayed there for most of the summer. And actually today is the first time I've done anything. I recorded a video for Kai Coggin's Wednesday night poetry, and then tonight, of course, on here with you and Scott. So it's been the first time I've really touched back into getting back into some events, and it's kind of nice. Missed it.
So you've really just gone back to nature completely. That's one of the, I guess, cool things about this strange situation is being able to detach from the digital world, break away from the algorithms, and find some peace.
Well, that's, kind of largely how my family lives anyway. We're pretty isolated. We live in a forest, and, when this whole thing happened, I really kind of took it as a cue, like, okay, there are several paths that I can see lit up in front of me, and the one that is really calling to me is to be outside. Especially with the looming, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were really unsure of how this was going to affect socioeconomic climate. And so I really felt like my job was to get out there and plant a garden and collect rainwater and figure out what we were going to do if all of a sudden everything that we depended on was no longer dependable.
That's amazing.
That was definitely a wise way to go about it. Imagine if everyone else had just gone to their backyard, started planting a garden, could have emerged from this a year later with a whole new system in place, self-sufficient and back to the roots. But sadly, I don't think everyone took your same route.
Well, everyone's different and everyone lives differently. That's always been one of my goals, and I think that was a huge push to really get it together, be serious about it.
What did you plant?
Oh my gosh. I can't even list it all, honestly. Between my husband and I, we actually spent probably 3 months, like January, February, and March, just starting seedlings. We planted watermelon, squash. We dug a strawberry patch, a raspberry patch, a blackberry patch. We planted lettuce, tomatoes, onions, peppers, garlic, eggplants. Everything. Literally everything. And we've always had a garden before, but this was like a huge endeavor for us. And we found out that we aren't really that good at it. I think some of the things that really, really thrived were like tomatoes and lettuce and peppers, and that was about it. Of course, like the raspberries and blackberries are wild, and so it takes them a few years to get established. But we incubated eggs. We hatched probably about 36 chickens, installed rainwater collection barrels, just really got serious, in case things came crashing down. And we had nothing but time,
Wow,
that's
awesome.
Really
cool.
Mela, how did your daughter take it how's she like? Is she absorbing all of it just by looking and watching you do that? And does she ask questions?
Oh yeah, I mean it's interesting because it's very it's twofold. We already sort of lived that way, so she was used to it. We just kind of ramped up our efforts, and that was definitely noticeable to her, and we explained it to her. I think that the thing that impacted her the most was the sudden loss of homeschool functions and events that we would go out with, classes and friends, and we attended a homeschool co-op, and that had to stop, obviously. So the thing that really impacted her was the sudden loss of our community, our homeschooling community.
That really does seem to be one of the bigger problems. All of these kids out of school, and in your case, the homeschooling community, but just separated from their friends, isolated. I know, look at my nieces and what they went through back in school now, thankfully, here in Georgia. But during those first few months, I'm sure that takes a toll, especially on teenagers who are already going through it.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So
it's interesting to see how everyone reacts differently to it. For me, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. My daughter was definitely not pleased.
It definitely does take on a different note for everyone, because I was similar. My life has not changed much at all, honestly, in the last few months, other than not going to events. But other than that, it's just sort of business as usual. But being affected because everyone else is affected, and it just takes a toll on the collective consciousness, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that serves as a huge reminder that we are definitely experiencing it collectively.
In all ways, right? It also tells you that the entire world experiences things collectively, and it's how much ever we may think that we are different, right? We're actually all the same when we experience things like this. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When it's broken down to the bare essentials, we learn what's most vital and important. And hopefully that's one of the lessons that many of us will be able to come away with, what truly matters and what the priorities in life are.
Right.
Yeah. One of my friends actually said, it was pretty profound. She said, I'm realizing that if and when this is all over, I might not come out on the other side with a lot, but what I do come out with is real.
It's sort of a shedding process that we're going through.
Definitely.
Coming out in the new
I like
stage.
that. I like how you call it the shedding process, Scott.
Thank you. Hopefully it will come out with the new skin and be better individually and better in our communities collectively on the world stage. These sorts of things can bring out the best or the worst in people, so we all just have to choose which way we're going to magnify that. So let's dive
Definitely seen both.
To both of y'all's new books. Let's discuss a little bit how these projects came about and what some of the themes that y'all are dealing with. I know, Kashiana, in your book, you're writing some odes, I guess you could say, to some of the favorite cities that you've lived in or traveled to. You want to start there and tell us a little bit about how Crushed Anthills came to be?
Yes, I can absolutely jump in and talk about Crushed Anthills. And before that, actually, just one of the looking at the glass half full and the positives, right, is Mela and I are doing this together in a way because of the pandemic. So that's how we started talking about this, that she had her book coming out, and I read about her book, and she and I started talking, and we said, hey, I just had just released my book, and you're coming out with, and we've never really met each other. We just know each other as poets, and we admire each other's work. And we said we never ever going to have a real book release or events or anything like that. Let's just lift each other up, and can we do this for each other and alongside each other? And Scott, then we thought of you because we'd both been on your show. So yes, we can talk about all the learning in the pause that this has brought us, but I think like you said, if you look in the mirror, there is also some positives that we can take away from this time, and this is one of them. I do want to say that.
Definitely.
Absolutely, well said. And I'm glad that you're both here tonight. I think as humans, what we're learning also is how adaptable we are to these circumstances, and there's always new ways to evolve and move through any challenge that comes our way.
Yep. And so that you said what the book and the evolution of the book is. I think the book's been evolving all through my life, and the name speaks for itself. It's called Crushed Anthills, and as everyone knows, that anthills are nothing but a byproduct of hardworking ants as they dig their way, right? And they make tunnels as they go along, and they are supposed to displace more earth or soil than any other organism. And I relate that to my life. All throughout my childhood, my father moved through cities. We lived in various cities and towns as part of his job. He moved from town to city, from city and towns across the country, and then I moved across countries as well every 3 to 4 years. And so I lived across many, many cities. And I think as you all would agree, every city molds you, unmolds you, it assimilates you, it disintegrates you as you grow through them, and you are nothing but you bring a piece of the city along with you, and you leave a piece of yourself in the city that you've lived in, or a town or a place that you've lived in. And so that's really how the name and the book came about. But to your point, Scott, I don't think there was a specific moment of creating the book. I always, as I've been writing about these towns and cities, and then as I was thinking about consolidating and compiling it, it just dawned on me to say it makes sense to consolidate and compile all of these together, because there's something here which has a thread, and they make sense coming together. The beginning of Crushed Anthills is the ending of Shelling Peanuts and Stringing Words. If you've read it, Scott, it starts with Hukum, or which really means the cosmic laws, or the greatest teachings, or the world order, or the divine order. And so in a way it also says that the journey that you live in life, or the cities you travel with, whether the cities are inside you or outside you, the internal cities or the external cities, they are all driven by the cosmic order or the broader order of life. And so really that's the theme of the book in a broader sense.
I really like that concept. It's almost like it's all the holographic whole, and then each city or location or scenery upon the earth is a shard or a crystal from that holographic whole, and taking them in to our micro selves and reflecting that macro energy in our own individual way. So I love what you've done with the concept of that book.
Thank you.
I do as well, Kashiana.
Thank you, Mela.
And we'll hear some pieces from Crushed Anthills coming up, but let's dive into your book as well, Mela. They found a woman's body your second collection. How did this one come to fruition?
So I think much like Kashiana was saying, I didn't necessarily set out to put a collection together. And actually most of these pieces were written before I actually released Skeleton Parade. And when I went through all of my poetry, I realized that there were some very, very focused themes. And so I put together Skeleton Parade, and then I started putting together this second collection before Skeleton Parade was even published. And then I published Skeleton Parade, and this one I actually wrote the title piece for this book, and a few others that went with it. And it's kind of a centralized focus on the strengths and weaknesses. Women, the way that they move through life, gathering their experiences in their careers, their relationships, their families, their homes. And so a lot of it is very dark, but also a lot of it is very hopeful, because it is very focused on strengths and weaknesses.
Mela, you said dark, and I've read a few of the poems a couple of different times, maybe 3-4 times, maybe even, and it may feel dark at first reading, but there's strength and hope that emerges out of it when you read it the second time or the third time.
Thank you. Well, it's definitely, I transmute trauma and pain through poetry, so it is all part of a healing journey.
When you're going through and processing and dealing with those subjects or themes that might be sensitive or take you back on a journey through your past that you have healed from or are healing from in the process of, what's the state of mind that you stay in? Do you go back into those experiences, or are you perceiving them from sort of a higher awareness as you're putting it together?
There's been both. It's been, like I said, a healing journey. And so a lot of times in the beginning of my literary journey, I had a very difficult time reading any of my own work out loud. I could read it in my mind on the page, and that's fine. But I read my husband all of my poetry. He hears just about everything I write. And every time I read them out loud, my voice would crack and I would cry. And I think in the beginning it was very difficult for me to process going back into that space without becoming overwhelmed or emotional. And as time has passed on, I've become more able to read them because they're more in the past. They're not something that I'm still going through. And I am currently in therapy. I started therapy about 2 months ago. And that's been something that's really started to transform the way that I feel about my past. And so it is definitely looking back kind of from a higher plane, like, okay, I lived through that, but it's not something that's still causing me pain. It was painful, but it isn't painful now. It's something that I had to get through. And there have been a lot of stepping stones. And this book is definitely probably about 10 of those.
Well, we're all fortunate that you've taken the high road to go through that journey, because then we get to be beneficiaries of the poetry that you put out, which is so wonderful and just powerful and fearless is one of the ways that your work strikes me. Just willing to
appreciate that greatly.
Go into it and deal with it and process it and share it with the world, which is not something that everyone can do. You do it well.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I've had a chance to read through a good section of your book, and I've read through Kashiana's book, so I'm excited tonight to hear some poems. I think that y'all are going to read some selections of each other's work, and then maybe read some of your own as well. I don't know exactly how the plan is going to go, but maybe we should dive into that aspect of things now. And who wants to lead things off?
I'm happy to lead in if you want.
All right.
No, go ahead.
I can lead in, and I'd like to start with Mela's title poem. Mela, with your permission, they found a woman's
absolutely,
body.
Kashiana. I would be honored.
And I'm taking a deep breath because it's a vulnerable poem, and I can tell you I cried when I read the poem.
Thank you.
So if you have the book, Scott, this is on page 80 of the book.
Oh, okay.
In case you want to follow along. They found a woman's body. I called my mother with death upon my heart, lips, silence too loud for sound. I had to tell her about the forest she was walking in, how they found a woman's body. Every singular moment ached into that one sentence. Hasn't it always? They found a woman's body laying at the cracked steps of tomorrow. They found a woman's body laying at the cracked steps of tomorrow. Shards of grass protecting her, a smoke bomb, tear gas, flash bang, away from whatever comes next. The sun and the moon and the earth make a sound. We can't hear it because we aren't collectively listening. But if you graze your fingertips across the tops of grain, you will feel her breathing. But if you graze your fingertips across the tops of grain, you will feel her breathing. They'll pull aside the curtain one day. They'll tear it all down. And when every willing and able soul steps forward with light in their hearts, desperate to be fed and aching for love, they'll find a woman's body. They found a woman's body. Beautiful, Mela. Thank you for letting me read it.
Thank you so much, Kashiana.
I want to ask both of you how it feels. I know when I hear other people read my work, it's always it's an honor, like Mela just said, but also getting the interpretation and just hearing it from someone else's point of view is always striking and fun for me. I don't know, I guess I get sick of reading my own work sometimes, so it's nice to hear someone else give their perspective. But how does it strike the both of you?
That's an interesting point, Scott, because when you're putting a book together, you know, how many times do you read the order and reorder and then read the poem? And you're like, oh my gosh, I've read this poem 10 times. I'm kind of sick of it. And you need to take a break and go back to it. And hearing someone else read it, you know, it was interesting for you, Kashiana, hearing the different lines that you put the most emphasis on. And so knowing that those were lines that particularly struck you, it's really fascinating to hear someone else emphasize the parts of your work that really hit them the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's nice. It's a nice change, and it is striking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think well said. I think you hit it on the head there. It's that emphasis and seeing what points are most powerful to other people. It brings it to life in a new way. even for the person that created it, which is a aspect of art that's so beautiful.
And sometimes
it really
may
is.
just be, it may just be even just a word, right? Just a word here or a word there.
Yeah.
That when
yeah.
you're writing, may just have been a filler for you, but it may strike the other person as something most meaningful in that sentence or that line.
Yeah. People can perceive everything so differently.
Yeah.
Which is one of the aspects of poetry, too, because we write for ourselves, but then we also write for the interpretation. That I guess I'm speaking for myself here, but I think other artists can relate to this as well, that once you give it away to the world, you want it to be embraced with their interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Allow that openness to take them on their own journey along with you.
Yeah. It's meant to be perceived differently. It's meant to be absorbed. It's meant to be related to, loved, maybe hated. Those are all acceptable responses.
Well,
Right,
like you
feel
asked
something.
Mela, right, about agree with both of you, and like you said to even Mela's, the question you asked Mela, Scott, about her being able to write from a place of vulnerability, and similar to that, it's, as they say, detachment is the most difficult form of expressing love, right? So for your poems,
Yes.
detaching yourself from your poems is the best way you can love your own work, is to be detached from it.
Yes, very much so.
What a great point, yeah. If you let it go and it comes back to you. That sort of idea behind it. Well, that was a great reading and a great poem, Mela. You want to take on one of Kashiana's?
Yeah,
Give
definitely. I would love
Crushed
to
Anthills.
read my favorite poem from Crushed Anthills. It's one of the ones that struck me most deeply. And Kashiana, you might have to help me with the pronunciation of the title. I know it's a city in India, but I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Nagpur? Is that the one you want to do?
Yes. Yeah. So that was my favorite poem in the book, Nagpur. Home to my A.R. Raman and Roha days. Languorously you taught me to weave myself and my silence into poetry as I lay beside you, head tilted. You and the city, both sizzler platters, served up a ravenous appetite, amateurs in apprenticeship to each other and our desires. We allowed for hunger rising, a subtle, slender rush thrusting deliciously against our palates. You and I explored deliberately every bargain in every market. Scooter rides across bumpy roads harvested trust in my belly as I held you from behind. 25 years later, I hold that memory of open roads and uncharted heart muscles. I drape you whenever an urge takes over to exist in the layers of your cotton saris.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you. It is a beautiful poem, Kashiana.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Does any story or recollection of that particular city pop into your mind when you hear the poem read, Kashiana?
Oh, so many. I don't know if my husband dialed in. I hope he has. That city was the first city we went to after we got married. So I guess that answers a lot of things.
Right.
I think it was unspoken and yet spoken. The thing I love the most about this poem, it is very beautiful. And for people that have a very active imagination, you're reading a book and you can picture all of the scenes that are being described. And in this poem, that is what happened when I read it for the first time. I can see the city streets. I can see the markets. I can see the scooter. I can see you, Kashiana, holding on to the back of your husband.
Sweet.
And it's so vivid, and it just conjures so many beautiful images.
Very nice reading, Mela, and I really love the idea in this book, Kashiana, of capturing these cities. It's an idea that maybe I want to borrow from you sometime if I can ever do that in my own life, which is one of the cities actually that I've been to a couple of times, Chicago, where you live now, obviously. There's a poem in there, and I was hoping that I could read that piece tonight, just because I grew up as a Cubs fan and have made a couple of trips up there in years past, and so I thought that would be one that I could relate to a little bit and maybe take a shot at it here. This is also from Crushed Ant Hills, and it's called Chicago. Your savage ambitions percolate the weather, your wind, your guns. You endure audible sighs of frozen ears tattered by relentless chills. You know well mothers of dead boys are not a pleasant sight. Whipping yourself into shape with each mistake, your flat-footed lakes separate people, their accents stuttering as they teach you not to fret about warmer climes. Chicago is pronounced shy or shy, de bears or de pride of the windy city, and I like to paint my own picture of you, egging me on to places underneath gaping architecture, black balconies, gold-embossed towers, a cinematic history of burning and rising again. Sometimes you take me to my south side. I love you except for the unlimited capacity you have for deep dish pizzas and road construction. Gripping me in a gray freeze, I come to scrape you into a familiar warmth.
It's beautiful, Scott. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you. And it takes on a tone as well, seeing as how you just had the first flurries of snow there, and I'm sure the months ahead will bring quite a bit more than that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the winters in that area each year?
Well, we just I think you just like succumb to it, right? You choose to just
You do. You
get into your bunk, hunker down and succumb to it and get used to it. Actually, it's funny. You look forward to it.
Look forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for reading that. It is it is an important poem because it was a very important transition as part of the Crushed Ant Hills in moving 7,000 miles from the country of my birth to the country that I live in today. And Chicago played a very important role in that. So that's a very important poem in this book. Thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you for allowing me to read it.
Do you want me to take the next one?
Yeah, let's go another round. This is fun.
It's fun. We can keep doing this. I'd like to do. I have two, but Mela, let me ask you. I'll ask Mela to choose. Mela, would you like me to do Every Little Thing I Think About When You Choke Me, or The Widow? Which one should I do?
Oh, The Widow.
The Widow. Okay. All right. And Scott, this is page 60, if you're following along.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Widow. We picked up the pieces of her gentle drowning, delicate edges frayed by clocks, ticking away the moments. Days fingered her soul like skeletal hands, turned into days, into the Queen Anne's lace of empty bottles, the sigh of time passing, as soft as each glass breath she took, each breath one step further away from disease's womb. She cries the dawn, her tears are dahlias that break the surface of a barren landscape. Her mouth flies through wine on wings of necessity. She exhales, and her life is dust, floating in a sun ray, beautiful, yet remaining a thing of dust. Between two sparrows' eyes she wanders, gathering kindling, because something has to burn, body still warm, heart still stuck somewhere in a swan's ribcage. That ending is really my favorite. I'm going to read it again. Between two sparrows' eyes she wanders, gathering kindling, because something has to burn, body still warm, heart still stuck somewhere in a swan's ribcage. Widow. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashiana.
You're welcome.
Very nice. I love that line. Her mouth flies through wine on wings of necessity.
Yeah. That poem is much about my mom and the things that she went through and had to face in the years after my father passed away.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
What does your mom think when she reads that, or has she read it? Have you read it to her?
Well, she has. It's hard. It's very hard. She called me when she received my book, and she told me that she opened it and read a few pages and started sobbing uncontrollably and had to put the book down.
Oh, wow.
And so she said she takes it slow, piece by piece, because she's not able to get through a lot of it before having an extremely emotional response.
I love the
which
line.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally understandable. I love the line, Queen Anne's lace of empty bottles, the sigh of time passing as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of poems interspersed throughout my work about my family, my mom, and just how we kind of all managed to move on, having lost one of the important members of our family.
It never gets easy when dealing with that. There's always that missing piece, but I think going through those sorts of things together and being able to talk about them at least helps in some way.
It does. I hear people say it never gets easier, and it's bittersweet. It does and it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It gets easier to talk about, maybe, but there's still an internal response that is something that at times you feel like you have to just swallow it and deal with it. It's still in there and it's still painful, but that's life. So now, Kashiana and Scott, if you guys don't mind, I would love to read another poem from Kashiana's collection, Crushed Anthills.
Certainly.
Go ahead.
This is, I believe, the last poem, called Epilogue. Kneading my inner map into an expedition, resetting the contours of my journey, looking outward until leaves sprout their length, eating bowls of lentil soup with no half measures, touring oceans for a living, failing, rising, failing without a barrel of regrets, choosing to undress in daylight, letting the dishes sit longer, lingering around to watch my child become a composition, resetting the contours of my journey, recalculating, anchoring, recalculating.
Thank you.
Wow, that does serve nice as a closing piece.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. I was mouthing that. I know that by heart. I was like mouthing that as you were reading it.
Yeah, you have those certain ones that you just remember always. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They're in there.
Thank you for reading that.
Absolutely.
Now, if I could, I'll take a shot at one of Mela's pieces. And this is Dear Moon on page 15.
Thank you.
Please remember, I never had a chance. I was spinning, dreaming, still drinking. 4 a.m. brings a hungrier creature than your mouth. Thin arms rope around my pale as the sky neck. Things get fuzzy when you're drunk and clearer in the light of dawn. Dear stars, don't tell the secrets you hold from the night before. This pilgrimage inside my flesh was cheap. What does $20 mean to the sky when the street prays to my feet, following a map of desperation, sucking in the comfort of my sheets, ignoring the bloodstains we never washed, souvenirs of my unanswered fertility? Dear sky, guide to my spirit journey, wisdom of the ages, guide me home, because .010 is too drunk to drive, and my car is the hollowed shell of a crime scene anyway, where someone kissed the ill-fingered wounds I've dragged around for years, my little fever deaths, running with the wild horses of yesterday, the smell of rot and fertilizer on the Pennsylvania wind, a deserved shitstorm less pungent than the hangover I'll marry in the morning, smelling like the death of my youth.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. I'm glad I've had a chance to read through. Well, I was reading through the PDF already, but it's always different when you have a book in your hands and can
It is.
connection with it. And so we can continue reading some more as the night goes on, and maybe can read a couple of your own pieces as well, but also want to open up the phone lines now if there's anyone out there that would like to call in for a little bit of an open mic segment. 646-668-8757 is the number here in the studio, and you're more than welcome to call in and join in the readings here tonight. We do have a caller at an area code at 803 who now just dropped off as I went to him. So, got another one here though at area code 310. Caller at 310. Are you there?
Yeah, this is me. This is Joshua Corwin calling.
Hey, Joshua.
Yeah, from Los Angeles, California.
Right on.
Yeah. Thanks. I really love what you guys have said. I just love the work. Thank you so much. And I gotta say, Scott, you have a very, very groovy and sexy voice. I love it.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
That is said a lot.
I'd love to. Yeah, and you guys both do as well, of course. Obviously, don't mean to single anyone out. Hey, yeah, I'd love to read a poem. How much? Short one or what? How does this work?
Take your time. Read a couple of pieces if you'd like. And appreciate you
Okay, how
tuning
about
in tonight.
one semi-long one? Long one. Instead of
That'll
short.
work.
Or one medium. Yeah. Okay, this is Dear America, and I think you'll know what this is about. Imagine me rocking back and forth while doing this, because I wrote it davening, which is like a type of rocking back and forth prayer. I'm Jewish, by the way. And it's in the Life in Quarantine project, and as well as in the with Local Gems Press of their Beat Gen anthology for 2020. Dear America, I feel the solar Sinai drop / oil-fueled hail, harvest heavenly star of David flames, vultures across the horizon. I hear helicopters above me. I hear them every day. Ambulances, cop cars, cyclic pitfalls, murky awareness, aristocratic heights. I want to cry. Tears rip heaven asunder. Flares devour flares in chemotherapy denial. Highlight tomorrow's anxiety shelter. I want to step outside and feel the breeze lift me 3 inches off the ground, away from the game of corpses in heaven's altitude chasms. Why do tears keep dwelling inside me? I want to close my eyes. I'm so tired, perturbed by petty co-consumers, draped in see-through tapestries of gum spam fury, with hygiene repositories and dust-mite landmines, filled with amorous spite, plebeian creeds, post-mortem atheist flashlight hope, a nuclear clarity sequence around new snacks, shattered oceans already dried up, azure forest, luxurious sky, and I let swaying lamplights go unnoticed, consequential to TV, poison libertines taking carcinogenic Ubers into clouds, highways. They drove themselves, those sunbird signs read. The embers of tomorrow will be warning you tomorrow night. Revise your soul of dramas, dreams, crafts of politicians who depreciated ignorance, levitated justice from this earth, and floated in the sun where stars go to die. I feel your window pane stares shatter, mosaic smiles in the holy shrine of now. I just want to scream and escape. Supernova, 7 billion sons, daughters, oracle-less and isolated, half shirtless, in boxers, panties only, and a mask underneath the regalia. Drag ethereal bodies across their homes, nations, the universe, power cathedrals of money, shake hands, kiss presidents, make love to lobbyists, and fear it. Awakening, I feel the silent bass boom my brains out. Standing still, claw scalp, TV terror screams in the background. I want the noise to stop. Skin exploding, hands crawl. I glare at the mirror, and the solar Sinai drip chops straight down my spine. I see through my clothes, my tapestry of gum spam fury. My callous hands pound the silent sirenic mirror, gasping for air, limited by ocean shards, strangled by quicksand cliffs upon our nation's reflection. My hands bloodied, my country masked, not knowing who we're fighting, transcend the meditative doormat slumber, slither across the floor, the nation, the universe, raise the holy hammer, and bang gong. Dear America, where were you when I inhaled spirit and exhaled a cloud of lilies? Where were you when I oscillated between sunrise and sunset, between God and man? Did you forget your own forgetfulness, submerge your mosaic body in an ocean of stars, or did you drift off into night where dust belongs and cry, Vayikra, stay calm, please, politicians, please, please, police, please, please, healthcare workers, physicians, please, please, populace, please, please, stay calm, cry, Vayikra, Vayikra. Talk cold, dark politics until you fall apart. Insane alchemy ventures destroy very well the healthy flames. Oh, how you hypnotize the ashes and drive me insane. with your cries, Vajikra, stay calm. How do we return home? Thank you.
Wow. Fantastic.
Wow.
Can feel the kinetic energy just flowing from you as you read that. Very cool.
Extreme momentum.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you. Well, it's been an extreme momentum, crazy year. And
It really has.
And really more than a year, and hopefully I hope they'll change. I really do.
So do I.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so
We
much.
all
I'm going
do.
to keep listening to the show. Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate you calling in. Have a good night, Joshua. All right, great piece.
Yeah, wow.
Let's move on. We've got caller now at an 832 area code. 832, are you there?
Yeah, this is Donald Trump, and I'm hearing you guys. No, just kidding. This is Dustin. Hey, how you guys doing there?
Thank you for calling, Dustin.
We got to laugh at the world. If we don't, we'll die.
That's true.
You're a great team. You two sound great. Scott, you're doing a great job altogether. I just had a poem I wanted to read, and I'll get moving on, listen to the final words, and then see what else everybody else has had to say. And I think the first call was a friend of mine, Melissa. I think she called in, and then maybe she lost the connection or something. I don't know, but yeah, she may call back. So
okay.
Anyway,
she's back on the line now, so we'll go to her after you, Dustin. But good to hear from you.
Great.
You got any new projects you want to talk about before you dive into?
Oh man, we just did a pandemic book with scholars all over the world. We did a set of serious personal essays, literary essays by scholars from all over the planet, and just talking about their experience with quarantine and how they kept sane as it's going along. And that's available from Amazon if anybody's interested in that. I think it's $15 on Amazon. And we had a book that I just helped co-edit with two others. It's called Hibiscus, and it was a major success. I think it did very well, and that was published with Wackle in India and Calcutta. Other than that, I've just been doing the same old, But I always like to read a poem since we're here for poetry. And you guys are awesome. You sound great together. It's just really fun listening to the conversation. Very welcome.
Thank you.
My poem, I'm just going to read one. It's a recent one. I haven't edited or played with it at all. I just wrote what came to mind, so that's going to be exciting to see. So From the Darkness of My Ways. I hold my briefcase of desires over dreams of love, never attentive to my wisdom. I have not reached Mount Ida yet. Muses are drunken and gay with fear and sublimation. We rewrite history and invent new codes. I pull receipts of courage and penned memories from the darkness of my ways. Memory and stillness against habitudes of trust, where the flow of time is renounced. Money spills into the dark.
Right on.
Beautiful.
Right on.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love the receipts of courage you had there. Thank you.
Right.
The ending was very strong.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's all about trying to, keep your own, your journaling and, you're keeping your personal history in line and trying to understand yourself. That's how I interpreted my poem. I'll never know what I'm writing about. So I just write.
let the subconscious do its thing and stream out into the world.
Those are always the best, Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me,
my friend. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone, Dustin Pickering, go check out Transcendent Zero Press.
I'm still seeing sales on your chat book there. Every once in a while, I see a sale come up, so it seems to be very popular. I'm glad we published that. Songs of a Dissident.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, and that was what launched my journey in this whole field. So I owe you and ZM there at TZP a lot of gratitude. Always will.
Yeah, well, we owe you too, so we'll keep going. If you want to hit us up again early in the next year or so, we'll see if we can get some help running up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for calling in, Dustin. Hey,
thank you for talking.
I just want to take a second before you drop, Dustin. Thank you. We just had Dustin reviewed Crush Chantels that came out on Inflectionist Review today.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you're friends with me on Facebook, Dustin Pickering, you can go to my page and see that's one of the more recent shares I did. It's the Inflectionist Review, and I really enjoyed the chat book. I enjoyed being a reviewer. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Kashiana.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you for calling in.
No problem. You guys have a great night.
Yeah. Thank you, Dustin. You too. Good to hear from you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care, Dustin. All right, yeah. I'm going to go check out that review after the show. And Dustin had mentioned, I think he said this was his friend Melissa at 803. Are you there at 803?
Yes, here I am.
All right, I'm sorry about dropped off a couple of times there, but I'm glad you called back in. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Melissa Chappelle. And,
hey, Melissa.
Hi, Kashiana.
Hello. Good to see you. Thank you for calling in.
Hi, thank you for calling in.
After the poetry that I've heard, I hardly feel worthy to read mine. The poetry's been so wonderful.
No, I'm looking forward to hearing yours too.
Love to hear yours.
It's really been, y'all's poetry has really been beautiful, really breathtaking.
Thank you.
I have two poems that I'd like to read. I'm really terrible at titling poems. The first poem that I have is called the Sprite poem. Sprite is in the drink. And I'm going to read it now. I sit at my desk, sipping on a Sprite, staring at my own reflection in the computer screen, the reflection of a pathless wood into which I must go, a darkness whose unknowing, under any semblance of the ordinary, I would not trust. But in this world, where the quick and the dead are bone to bone, and the light is shattered into 1,000 shining shards onto the ground where I walk, I must seek safe harbor in places unsafe to the machinations of fake news and screaming tyrants within and without. Here is a broken loblolly, not unlike my fractured piece, for I have been broken many times over by wind and snow and lashing rain, broken so that I wept in the light of the moon, as the light of the moon came down like icefall around me. I wept as the coyote sang in the howling light. Yet I passed this way, and I will pass this way but once, for I will follow the tracks of the trackless one, by the heat of his breath, by the pulsing of his great forested heart, the God of the darkening wood. I will yet learn to trust him, and I will learn to hope that the sun yet rises somewhere, like the clean blade of grass, like Lazarus from his jealous tomb, or two lovers from their tent at dawn.
Wow.
Wow. That was a beautiful
I love the line, I must seek safe harbor in places unsafe.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I wept as the
you.
coyote sang in the light. I like that one too.
And the light is shadowed within and without. It's beautiful, Melissa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. You said you had a second one you'd like to read as well?
Yes, this next one It's called Stars. The night pours in, an elixir of floating lights, and the call of the barn owl, the whisper of your shirt as it falls to the floor. The crickets sing in praise of this night, the whisper of the great and holy spheres as they turn in all their might. The gathering moon makes the tides of the earth to rise and fall, as our oceanic breaths rise and fall. With each primal surge, we burn with the light in our blood, the stars that rush through our veins. I kiss your stomach like a viper, then rest my head there on skin cooled by light spilled from the upturned moon. The night conceals the hurting world from us, but it is there, hidden behind the mountain and its fanning ferns, spinning mad, a raging inferno. Yet we know it not, as we are so lost among stars.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Very
That
nice.
was gorgeous. Stars rush through our veins. Absolutely beautiful.
Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
Thank
calling
you.
in and sharing, Melissa. And I just realized I have an email from you that I haven't responded to yet, so I'll be in touch soon, and we can maybe set up a date for you to come back on and talk about your work in more detail.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you for calling. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night ahead, Melissa.
Y'all do too. Thank you.
All right, so that was Melissa Chappelle, and we have another caller on the line here at area code 617. 617, are you there?
Yeah. Yeah, hi,
Who are we
Scott. This
speaking
is
with?
Megha Sood.
Sorry,
Hey,
say it one
Megha.
more time.
Yeah, Megha Sood. I'm a poet and editor. I'm calling from Jersey City, New Jersey.
Hey,
Hi,
Megha.
Megha.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you for calling
so
in.
much for taking me. I've been like listening to the show since the start, maybe like 4 minutes off, and it's such a beautiful, immersive experience to hear both of them read each other's work, and yeah, I could really relate to what like Kashiana was like telling about the conception of like the chapbook, the poetry book, Crushed Anthills. Because
Thank you.
as like her, my father was like in the job where we used to like travel a lot, and we traveled a lot in different cities. So yeah, I could relate to that. And on the similar note, what Mela was telling about like losing someone from the family, and how the grief sets in and it molds and morphs us, and sometimes you approach it from like a very deeper point of your heart, and sometimes you approach it from a point of like awareness or healing. So I lost my father, like, and unfortunately I couldn't like see him during his last time because I was in a different country as I was traveling for work.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm so sorry.
yeah, so I could relate to that how it keeps coming back every time you think about it. So it's both healing, that you are like getting over it, and sometimes you're like you cannot get over it. It will not get easier ever.
Yeah.
So,
it's always shifting. It's always changing.
Yeah, always shifting, and always like it's coming back to you, but it's coming back always in a different form.
Mm-hmm. Thank you
So-
for calling, Megha.
Oh, you're most welcome. And I love that you both guys are like reading each other's work, and I absolutely agree with the fact that when somebody else reads their work and puts stresses on a different line, when Kashiana was reading Mela's and vice versa, and I could strongly relate to the fact that when somebody else reads your work, they read it with a very different perspective. And as we say, like, the poem is not for the poet, but it's for the readers, because then it gives the, like, you know, different versions of the poems altogether from a different perspective.
Yeah, breathes new life into it, changes it.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's very, like, it was such a nice, peaceful thing to hear you guys reading each other poem, and obviously Scott reading each of your works, so I had to call in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mega. That's very nice of you to say, and it's really good to hear your voice.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to read one poem of mine, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this one is actually one of the poems from my latest chapbook, which it's not actually a chapbook, but something like which got printed because I took part in a 15-day poetry challenge by a New York-based press. So each poem was written in response to a prompt or a question which they gave us every day. So the question for this poem was write a poem that asks and answers a question. So the title of my poem should be the question, and the poem itself should be the answer. So that was the response expected.
Mm-hmm.
So the title of my poem is Was the Journey Worth the Pain? And it's opened up with the quote, which says, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man.
Oh, wow.
And the poem is, a grandeur of illusion, a miracle of thoughts, trailblazing your dreams, circling and creating that swirls in your eyes, for that experience so surreal, so ecstatic at the same time, where the life intersects the illusions between the dreams and reality, where you are cut into half, sliced and mutilated to appear in million different facades to bear the overwhelming journey. When the masks are old and peeling, scraping off bit by bit, and old thatched dreams are giving in and slipping into the deep abyss of that circling whirlwind called time, you sit and prick your yellow skin and weld soul to figure out the same reason, the only belief you have clutched onto all this life which brought you this far. Was the journey worth the pain? Thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you. The million different facades was beautiful, Mega.
Thanks, Kashiana. Thanks so much.
Stunning imagery.
Thanks, Mela.
Wonderful piece. Appreciate you listening in and calling in with your thoughts tonight. Very much appreciated, and sharing your poem as well.
Thanks so much, Scott. I look forward to calling you on Halloween itself. I'm really queued up for the Alien Buddha Press House of Horror #3 reading poems.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, we'll be doing a show on Halloween night, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have a lot of readers calling in from Alien Buddha Press anthologies, and so look forward to hearing from you again next Saturday. Or this coming Saturday, I should say, and hope everyone will
coming Saturday.
tune into that episode. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, before I sign off, thanks for taking me in, and thanks Mela and Kashiana, and congratulations to both of you for your books, and it's beautiful from what I read and what I gather from this reading.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you again on Saturday.
Yeah. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good night. All right. Thank you to everyone who's calling in here tonight. This has been a fun show so far, and we're going to keep rolling along. We've got another caller here at area code 336. 336. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who are we talking to?
the wolf.
Oh, right on.
I'm gonna cry.
Hey, y'all.
What's going on, my friend?
Listening to you guys, man. Awesome show.
Wow.
So I was just gonna read.
I'm speechless. I'm super glad you called.
Tell us a little bit about Rogue Wolf Press. What's going on?
Shadow. Corner of my eye, fleeting madness. Saw her standing, holding snakes. By rainbow-colored tails, the dark cannot hide when I cannot see her. My soul rides in agony beside a metal staircase. There are scratches made by my belt buckle. Almost was not good enough. City white sweat stains across windshield. Am old like the road, the bridge over there with mossy lips. Believes in a kiss with winds that shake breath. She looks sad, this room has oval eyes. And some wear me better than others, fall asleep in antique rocking chairs, am no longer chasing the dying of the light, pushing too hard, burning out was good enough. Fear is a check engine light. Fear for some is a check engine light, short breath, a gasp away from gasoline fumes, sitting on the side of soft, shouldered yellow lines. Can still see your outline slowly walking away, words draining hope, cannot see her soul in agony on the floor beside me, and there are scratches on my back. I'm still old like the road.
Awesome.
And I've drowned several times in her kiss. Rock and roll, dancing short skirt that never apologized. Didn't have to yell Geronimo. I yell timber as she's used to big wood. Promised in my youth, gotten rid of letters. Haven't told anyone of love, remember? Every word said about the first and best of days. In secrecy, kept her fire alive. She mined my diamonds and sped out towards the border. And I still ramble. Go ahead, Scott, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
That's
okay.
beautiful.
It was beautiful.
You always catch me off guard, dude, because I jump in and you're not quite finished yet.
Oh no, I can go on forever. Like it's just
Kevin's epic poetry.
Yeah, exactly. Those pregnant pauses that you throw in there, I always get thrown for a loop.
Well,
but you're
like a lot of my friends have told me that I need to slow down. Like when I read,
works,
and then it's like when I read, like I try, and then
It was beautiful.
You've got a unique style, and it works.
Well, you said almost was not good enough, and then you had a pause after that.
Nice.
I almost got tricked there too. It was beautiful, though. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So how are things going?
Headache.
Tell us a little bit about Rogue Wolf Press. What have you got going on there right now?
Man, I'm just here to read poetry right now.
All right.
We could talk about like another show, like a future show. You know, I might be able to come back on Songs of Selah and talk about Rogue Wolf Press. Yeah, like that's cool with me. But right now, I just want to read some poetry and hold on, find a lighter that works.
Well, hit us with another one. A few more stanzas.
Might have lost him.
The wolf is an elusive creature.
Very much so. He went back into the woods.
No, hold on.
You're breaking up a little bit, Kevin. Yeah. You're back.
Well, no, my Bluetooth, I walked back. I've been pacing sort of back and forth because I like to pace when I read. And my Bluetooth in the background picked it up. Anyway, headaches. Future pains never listen. Spells dance, islands awake. Incantations predicted outside my window. An angry god or woman dancing naked. Shame in the colonial sense, dismissed, bloody in streets. My hands are clean. Grass behind my tombstone is not a mountain left to climb. My illness provides curb service. Voices, shallow eyes look, waiting, whispers on nibbles, promises in a dark room. The light startles, scurrying beast. All of us fear punishment, and I still love you after failed suicide attempts, crucified ideals, slow vesper services in the apocalypse, archangels, hoarse voices, no longer carried by the sunrise. Tears fall, taste fire, not salt. A cold water flat dream from years ago burns away, forgotten. Will you do this for me? Sacrifice passing this fire, shallow, euphoric, nightmare stage, different lenses. Dreams of pins and needles. Last night, flash of blood inside cylinder before dropping hammer. Down, cold sweats, used to be dry sheets, tossing, turning, old daydreams, hard to come by, authentic ones. Cold, rusty silence, feigned aches, deviant, dominating conversation, a new glass in hand raised toward New Year. Now the believing in her myth again. There are always other applicants waiting. Happens next. I'm sorry, no one understands her love. And spark was the last vengeance marching, arriving later. After sunset, fire on chest, my muse imitates road construction, bridges building, bong hit, smoothing my throat. Downtown, wearing a cross of the advocate in bronze leather, strapped heart, my chest is brown to rattlesnake vertebrae entwined. Joshua tree, thorns taste, perceived scapegoat heart before. I smelled her perfume or blood. Look into the poor begonier's appetite, waiting for taste to ferment after walking hungover. She realized that she had left her house without her chapstick.
Hell yeah. Bringing the heat is always good stuff, man.
Visceral.
Yeah. Having flashbacks.
All right.
Very nice.
Last episode.
Thank you for letting me read, man. Wolf out.
Thank you for reading.
Right on, yeah.
Thank
Let's do another show down the road.
Yes, sir.
Take it easy.
Thank you for calling.
Thanks, everyone.
Kevin, for calling.
Called in so far. It's been a great lineup of poets here during the open mic segment here.
Yeah.
Some good friends and some great poets.
Fantastic.
And, there's about 15 minutes left in the show. If anyone else wants to call in at 646-668-8757. But I do want to remind everyone as well that Mela Blust's new book, They Found a Woman's Body, is available now, as well as Kashiana's book, Crushed Anthills. And links to both of those books are right there in the show description if anyone would like to pick up a copy. And also go read that review of Crushed Anthills that Dustin Pickering was talking about. Get another feel for it. So I guess maybe we can return to the two of y'all's books now here for the final segment, and you want to do another round of reading each other's or take on some of your own? How do y'all want to do it?
I would actually like to ask Kashiana to read one of hers from her book, and I'm curious to know which one from the book is your favorite poem from Crushed Anthills.
Oh my God, that's a hard question. It's hard. Every poem is special, right? Like, it's hard to call it, but I will read one. I have, and I'll jump into reading, and I'm going to request you to read your favorite from your book. I know. I know that.
Fair. Turnabout is fair. It's fair.
Which is Fluidity. But I'll jump into mine, and then I'll hand over to you, Mela. I'm going to read the poem about the city Chandigarh. Chandigarh. Keeper of geometry, home to squares and blocks of mathematical streets, your young and old are slumberously framed in identical row houses, though you are still undecided about who you want to be. I often walked alleyways, mapping Nana's home streets, witnessed intentional afternoons waiting for him to finish his perfect lunch in a perfect table setting. His vestigial feudalist four-legged companion, alone, weary, a structuralist, walked in straight lines too. I hated grapefruit, 4 wedges per person, every afternoon, 12 sliced fruit segments every day for 45 days of summer. I visit you on lonely nights when it feels necessary for a fixedness to prevail. Chandigarh.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mela?
So, Kashiana, you said you wanted me to read Fluidity.
Yes, please.
It's on page 61.
All right.
Fluidity. Something spooked a flock of blackbirds in a sleeping cornfield. Hundreds of tiny shapes fluttering, moving as one in a graceful sort of panic. And then they settled back down into a comfortable place. How I wish that I, too, could experience panic in a graceful manner, that fear could elicit fluidity, a dance and not a misstep. How I wish that I, too, could fall gently back into place.
Oh my. Oh my.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Just beautiful.
Thank you.
How did y'all pick those as your favorites? It's hard to find one particular sometimes.
I know for me, go ahead, Kashiana.
No, you go first.
Again, it's a difficult choice, and if I were to really examine every poem and try to figure out which was my favorite, I would probably argue with myself for days. But I am particularly fond of Fluidity. I actually wrote it in my head in one fell swoop in a moving car, which is actually pretty rare for me. I usually write them in pieces. They come to me and that's just stuck in my head for days until it finishes itself, and then I have to write it down. But I literally was driving past a cornfield and I watched these birds just suddenly, the earth just gave birth to this huge flock of thousands of birds. and they went up and they did a giant swoop and a swirl, and then they all came back down and disappeared. And it was like watching a dance. And the dance was because something scared them. And so that poem just came into my head. And I just recited it to myself over and over again until I got home. Luckily, I was only 3 minutes from home. And I got home and I immediately recorded it. And I thought to myself, wow, that's amazing. It almost never happens to me. And that same night, I sent the poem in. I submitted it. And it was immediately accepted for publication.
Wow.
Which is also extremely rare. So Delmarva Review actually accepted that one, and I think it was the same day that I sent it, and the same day that I wrote it.
Wow. Yeah, that's
fantastic.
All synchronistically fell into place. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Bird.
Thank you, Bird.
The poem itself is as graceful as the scene that you're describing.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. This one, it's kind of, I think it was formed in me, like, again, these are cities, right? So this poem, I lived in Chandigarh when I was in undergrad, and I used to live with my grandfather. That's, you see the reference to my Nana, and he lived a very regimented lifestyle. I adored him. I lived with him. I think the poem probably formed in my head at that time, but it came out a year ago when my parents moved from New Delhi to Chandigarh a year ago, and I went to visit them. And it came out, like you said, Mela, I wrote it in one flow instantly, and it seemed like everything that was formed 25 years ago, or how many, I don't remember, whatever number of years ago, just came out at that point in time. So it's special for that reason.
Yeah, very much so. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, both those pieces were, and all the poems that you all have read tonight have had an elegance to them. It's been a wonderful night. I want to thank again everyone else that called in during the open mic. It's always a welcome surprise when a lot of people call in. Really appreciate everyone that's listening and willing to share their work with everyone. It's awesome.
It was a great evening. It felt very
wonderful,
energetic and energized by the callers.
Yeah. And some beautiful poetry.
A lot of great
Dustin's friend Melissa that called in read gorgeous pieces.
Wow. She writes beautifully.
Yeah, very talented.
Absolutely, and hoping to set up an episode with her to talk about her work in the future. And just a reminder, if there's anyone else that would like to come on a future episode, just get in touch with me via email, 17numa@gmail.com. And I appreciate it, Kashiana and Mela, for coming on tonight and doing this sort of dual launch of your books. Congratulations to both of you for the excellent collection.
Thank you, Scott.
Grateful to you, Scott, for having us. Thank you. And
very grateful.
Lots of
Thank
love.
You.
Lots of love to both of you and Mela. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kashiana.
And of course,
have a wonderful evening.
Welcome on the show anytime in the future, and hopefully we can do this again.
Have a great evening and stay well.
Thank you. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye. Good.
Thanks once again, everyone, for calling in. We'll have another big episode coming up this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, a Halloween special with Alien Buddha Press. So I want to invite everyone to listen in that evening as well. And please do spread the link and share the word if you enjoyed the show tonight. Sending good vibes to everyone in this crazy world. And until next time, Selah.
need a big God, big enough to hold your love. You need a big God, big enough to fill you up. Keep me up at night to my messages you do not reply. You know I feel like you're the most, the best of the best and the worst of the worst. Well, you can never know the places that I go. I still like you the most. You'll always be my favorite ghost. You need a big God, big enough to hold your love. You need a big God, big enough to fill you up. Sometimes I think it's getting better, and then it gets much worse. Is it just part of the process? For Jesus Christ, it hurts. No, I know I should know better. Well, I can make this work. Is it just part of the process? For Jesus Christ, it hurts. Need a big God, big enough to hold your love. Need a big God, big enough to fill you lie down